Coverage on this story. Great job. And our next guest thinks that AIG should be broken apart. Want to bring in Republican Congressman Thaddeus McCotter of Michigan. And, you know, Congressman, you heard Rich was reporting that Senator Dodd got the most contributions from AIG. And this kind of stuff just doesn't work well with people a lot of the time.
No, and it's unfortunate that on St. Patrick's Day, the AIG bonuses have so many Americans seeing red. I think what we have to do is step back and we have to look at what's happened. We have a situation where the government, through the use of TARP funds and through Federal Reserve Board funds, has not put as a precondition on the loan the preclusion of executive compensation. That should happen. We still have time to do that. Secondly, for the long-term financial stability of the markets, what we need to do with AIG is something the administration had looked at doing in February, which is finishing it off, going in, taking it over, breaking it up, and re-privatizing it. I think that would stop the slow bleed of the taxpayers and would also help to bring some certainty to the markets rather than continuing to try to prop up something that is clearly too big to fix.
Yeah, I think this thing about coming up with a special law to tax a special group, as much as a lot of people are outraged about the AIG bonuses, I think they're also getting maybe some backlash, Congressman, on, and I don't know if you're hearing that in your office, about the big boot of government. I mean, if you don't like something that I said or did, would you have a Tom Sullivan tax?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. What you're seeing is an overreaction by many people, some of whom voted for the TARP in the first place or in subsequent rounds of it. And they're trying to overcompensate by passing legislation for a specific instance that will have general ramifications that would be detrimental to the economy and to the American citizens. That's why my position is we should look at it as a whole. We should take it, we should have it, the 80% should be finished off, take control of it, and then break it up into its constituent parts. Let the healthy parts be re-privatized and wall off the toxic assets.
Well, there's now a bill in the House that would basically put like a surtax on these bonuses. So taxing is the answer. What's your position on that?
Taxing's not the answer. What the answer is, again, to have before the final round of the $30 billion that Secretary Geithner announced on March 2nd, what he should do is put preconditions on the receipt of that loan by AIG that they have to forego bonuses. The sanctity of the contract is important, but those contracts can be renegotiated, as we are seeing in the auto industry, between the United Auto Workers and the companies in return for potential bridge loan expansion. So I think that that's a bit of a canard. But again, what we have to do is grab the bull by the horns, no pun intended to the Wall Street people, and actually provide certainty here and solve this problem once and for all, because the longer it continues to drag out, the more uncertainty there are in the markets, the more potential for such egregious actions by these corporate governance boards can occur, and more importantly, taxpayers will be bled, and they believe it is unfair.
Representative, I do agree with you, something has to be done. The problem is the government already owns 80% of AIG, and they've dropped the ball several times and got us into this position. Why taking on the extra 20% and privatizing this and taking it and the government taking over? How is that going to fix things? The government's they've proven so far they cannot control AIG, and they have not done a good job. So why should we believe in the government going forward?
Because it is for the purposes of re-privatization of this company. As you rightly point out, the taxpayers are already on the hook for 80% of this quote-unquote too-big-to-fail entity that has clearly proven that it is too big to succeed. So with the government coming in with the expressed intention of helping to break it up into its constituent parts and selling it off into the private sector where it belongs is actually far better than the current path we're on, where you have nationalization without any direction from the government, and you have the opportunity for individuals to try to profit from the misfeasance that once brought us to the precipice of a global depression.
So, I'm sorry, real quick. I just want to ask you this. There is talk about, when we go back to these bonuses, they are contracts. These are legal contracts. So how do you deal with that issue?
Well, again, just as you do in the auto industry, you're having discussions in return for taxpayer bridge loans. You can have these contracts renegotiated, or they can forego it and go into bankruptcy. This is the very type of decision that is being made. I would also disagree with the premise that simply because these people were smart enough to break it, they're smart enough to fix it. If this is the best and brightest we have, we certainly live in a benighted time.
And you represent Michigan, so we talked to you a lot about the automakers. But a lot of people were talking about bankruptcy was the better way to go rather than... Why not, and I don't disagree with your idea about taking it and putting it into smaller pieces, but why not use bankruptcy court instead of Congress or the administration?
Because number one, the auto companies won't come out. Number two, they're the victim of the misfeasance that was perpetrated on Wall Street to create the credit crunch and by bad decisions in Washington. They need a chance to survive within a normal economic time. The restructuring that has occurred prior to the bridge loan within the auto industry and is intensified and continuing now within the auto industry is a clear example of their intent and good faith effort to continue to prove worthy of expanded taxpayer loans. The AIG example, 10 times the amount that has been received by the auto industry with no restructuring, with executive bonuses. That is exactly the wrong type of behavior that needs to be rewarded in this time of economic recession.
All right, Congressman McCotter, we're going to have to leave it there, but it's always great to talk to you. Thank you for coming on, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, coming up.